Afternoon, everyone. We are now in Unit 4, Lesson 1, the Mother Tongue as the Foundation of Content and Second Language Learning. So, for today's discussion, we have our learning goals. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to trace, know the history of, and the rationale behind MBT MLE in the Philippines. Second, read and analyze a research article about mother tongue as the foundation of contents and second language learning, and explore other research studies that would support and or contradict MBT MLE. So, for so many years, our country's quality of education has always been in question because of our consistent dismal performance in international and national standardized exams and high attrition and dropout rates. Quite a number of curricular reforms were introduced in the past to curb these problems, and one of the most drastic educational reforms is the um, introduction of the K-12 program in 2013. Its distinctive feature is the use of mother tongue as a medium of instruction for the early grades to ensure that meaningful learning is taking place in the classroom. So, what language do you prefer your teacher to use in class in explaining the lesson? So, for this question, we conducted an online survey among the 36 students of the third year BS in English to determine their preferred language for lesson explanation. So the result of the survey revealed that majority of the students prefer the use of their native language or mother tongue in explaining the lessons or for the teachers to use in explaining the lesson. This preference suggests that students feel more comfortable and engaged when instruction is delivered in their mother tongue, as it enhances comprehension, deepens understanding, and foster better classroom participation. Second is the English, with 55.6% of students selecting it. Meanwhile, Filipino was not chosen by any respondents, suggesting it is the least favored for lesson explanation. Though the bilingual education policy has been placed since 1974, so I believe that all of you is familiar with bilingual education policy and it was already tackled from the previous reporter. So, identifying Filipino and English as the languages of instruction for specific subjects, you may have personally experienced that these LOIs or language of instructions were not consistently used in the classroom. So, teachers often sort to code switching, where they will use the native language of their students in explaining the lesson for their students also to easily understand the topics. So they believe that academic content is better understood when the language of instruction is comprehensible to the learners. So, for so many years, the country followed the bilingual education policy. Again, this policy required both the use of English and Filipino language as a mode of instruction, as a medium of instruction. However, this approach was criticized for contributing to poor academic performance among students, particularly in subjects like math and science. Studies revealed that many Filipino learners were struggling to grasp even basic academic concepts, with some data showing that less than 60% of the content was being mastered. Experts and educators believe that one key reason for this was there is a discrepancy between the languages used in teaching and the languages students actually understood. To address this issue, the Department of Education introduced the MBT MLE or the Mother Tongue Based Multilingual Education policy in 2009 through Department Order number 74. So this new policy allowing the use of the mother tongue of the students as a medium of instruction from um, early early stage from their kinder 1 to grade 3. The idea was that children learn best in a language they are most familiar, which helps them better understand and retain concepts across subjects, including math, science, and even Filipino and English. So, this shift toward using the mother tongue in early education wasn't just a local experiment. It was supported by global research showing that learners perform better when taught in a language they fully comprehend. Ultimately, the goal of the policy was to create a stronger foundation for lifelong learning by making education more inclusive and accessible from the very beginning.
So I am the next reporter. So we're going to talk about Bolter and Deckers from 2011 study on mother tongue instruction in Labuagan as case study for the Philippines. So this study is the basis of, or one of the basis rather, of the implementation of MDT MLE in the Philippines, which is why it is considered as a landmark study on mother tongue instruction in the Philippines. So we have three research questions. So the first question is: does participation in a program in which there is a heavy usage of the first language as a language of instruction compromise the development of proficiency in L2, or the language of jobs? So the answer is no. The study provides a clear evidence that the use of the first language as a language of instruction does not compromise children's ability to learn the second language. So it is stated that in the research, the result of the research provides evidence that the use of the first language as a language of instruction does not compromise the children's ability to learn the second language. So, in fact, children who received most or all of their instruction in English perform worse on English language assessments compared to those in the mother tongue based education program. So, this is why it is said that it provides clear evidence that using the first language as a language of instruction does not compromise the children's ability to learn, because um, the students or the children who receive most of their instruction in English perform worse on English language assessment rather than or compared to those in mother tongue based education program. Notably, the performance gap in English grew larger by grade 3. Similarly, students also showed advantages in learning Filipino, though the difference between the groups was less pronounced and appeared to fluctuate across grade levels. So, these findings suggest that when children first learn to read, write, and understand in their own language, they develop stronger foundational learning skills, which in turn help them acquire English and Filipino more effectively. So, again, it says that the more the students learn using their first language, the more they have or they develop stronger foundational learning skills, which help them in acquiring English and Filipino more effectively. So, next we have: thus, participation in a program in which there is a heavy usage of the first language as language compromise mastery of overall curricular content. So, using the first language as the medium of instruction in the early years enhances comprehension and learning across academic subjects. So, it says that using um, first language help students um, using the first language as their medium of instruction help them to enhance comprehension and learning across academic subjects. Learners grasp abstract concept more effectively when taught in language they understand well. So, numerous studies from the Philippines and other countries affirm that mother tongue based multilingual education, or MTB/MLE, leads to stronger performance in key areas such as mathematics, science, and reading. So, UNESCO from 2008 emphasizes that learning in the language children speak best not only increase cognitive development but also improves subject matter retention. So to support this, a study in Cameroon Walter 2011 revealed that all 12 experimental schools using language or first language or L1 instruction outperformed all 12 control schools using other languages. Although the margin varied, the evidence clearly supports the positive impact of first language based instruction on content mastery. So, my answer was supported by this study from Cameroon Walter 2011, as it reveals that the 12 experimental schools that use their first language outperform the other group, which is the control group, or the control group that use other language. So, next is, does participation in a program in which there is a heavy usage of the first language as a language of instruction compromise the development of proficiency in such key areas as math, science, and reading? So, as I said earlier, the answer is no. So, research from UNESCO and various bilingual education studies confirm that first language instruction, particularly in early years or kindergarten, supports academic achievement rather than hinders it. So, research in multilingual settings show that students in MTB MLE programs have lower dropout and repetition rates. So, better classroom engagement and improved academic outcomes over time. So, a study by Ball from 2011 found that mother tongue instruction correlates with higher academic achievement and greater learner confidence. So, likewise, Malone from 2007 reported that children in MTB MLE programs in the Philippines not only achieved better academic results but also showed increased engagement in their learning environment. So next we have how mother tongue is considered as the foundation of content and second language learning. So first, let's talk about what is mother tongue. So the term mother tongue, it refers to a person's native language. That is a language learned from birth, and it also called a first language, dominant language, home language, and native tongue. Although these terms are not necessarily synonymous. So for me, I was born in Makati. So my first language, my dominant language, my home language, and native language or native tongue is Tagalog. Next is contemporary linguists and other educators commonly use the term L1 to refer to a first or native language, which is our mother tongue. And the term L2 refers to a second language or a foreign language that's being studied. So, mother tongue plays a crucial role in a person's life as it shapes their identity and culture. So, it's the language in which people express their emotions, thoughts, and ideas. So, a child's first language is the foundation for learning and cognitive development, and it helps in the acquisition of other languages, which is proved by the research that I have talked about earlier, which is the Walter and Deckers from 2011 study on mother tongue instruction in Labuagan, a case study for the Philippines. So, next is the role of mother tongue in language learning. So the role of mother tongue in language learning, understanding cannot be overstated. So it is the foundation of on which all other languages are built. So children learn their mother tongue naturally, just like us. So without any formal instruction, we can learn our mother tongue by listening to our parents, our siblings, by communicating with our peers. That is called which is said that we can learn our mother tongue naturally and without any formal instruction. So the mother tongue provides a framework for understanding how language works. So it includes grammar, syntax, and vocabulary. So research has shown that students who have a strong foundation in their mother tongue are more successful in a learning a second language. So this is because they have already developed the cognitive skills and language awareness that are necessary for language learning. So in addition, using the mother tongue in the classroom can help students better understand and retain new information. And when teachers explains concept in the student's mother tongue, it can help to clarify and reinforce the new information, and also it can help them understand it better because they know the language, and it also helps to build a bridge between the students existing knowledge and new knowledge they are acquiring. Next is mother tongue based learning makes lessons more interactive and easier for students. So Department of Education 2026. So it says that learners begin their education in the language they understand best, their mother tongue, and need to develop a strong foundation in their mother language before effectively learning additional languages. So um, students needs to students need to have a strong or develop a strong foundation in their mother language or their first language for them to be able to effectively learn additional languages. So this is where the Department of Education or DepEd gets inspiration in its inclusion of mother tongue based multilingual education or MTBMLE as a feature of the Enhanced Basic Education Program. So it mandates the use of the language that students are familiar with, which is their first language, as a medium of instruction to allow them to grasp basic concepts more easily. So currently, DepEd uses 19 languages in MTB MLE, which are the following. So we have Tagalog, Kapampangan, Pangasinan, Iloco, Bicol, Ibanag, Sinubuanong Binisaya, Hiligaynon, Waray, Bahasa Suk, Maguindanaon, Maranao, Chavacano, Ivatan, Sambal, Akyanon, Kinaraya, Yakan, and Sinurigaonon. So that's it for my part.
The MTBMLE is implemented into modules. First is as a learning or subject area and as a medium of instruction. So MBTMLE as learning or subject area, it is where students learn about their mother tongue as a subject, just like they would study English or math. While as a medium of instruction, the mother tongue is used to teach other subjects like math, science, or social studies, especially in early grades. The purpose of this approach is to build strong cognitive and reasoning skills, helping children become confident and capable learners who can later transition smoothly into using other languages. The statement of Dr. Monroe reinforces this idea by citing research and historical practices, such as the experience with the Thomasites. So, Thomasites were the American teachers in the Philippines. that show how learning in one's native language significantly improve comprehension and academic performance. The use of the mother tongue in early education were seen as a practical and effective tool for building foundational learning skills. So there are four aspects of development. First is the language development. So language development refers to building a strong educational foundation using the child's first language, the language they know and use best. So by starting with the mother tongue, students can understand lessons more easily and connect new knowledge to what they already know. This helps them succeed in school and prepares them to learn other languages later on. It acts as a bridge to help them eventually become comfortable using Filipino, English, or other languages for more advanced learning. Second is the cognitive development. On the other hand, it focuses on helping students develop their thinking and reasoning skills. School activities in this area go beyond just answering basic questions like who, what, or where. Instead, they challenge learners to think deeply and solve complex problems in their own language, which supports better understanding. Once they master these skills in their mother tongue, they can apply the same thinking abilities when learning Filipino and English, making it easier to express and understand ideas in multiple languages. Third is the academic development. So, in this academic development, students will gain the skills and knowledge needed in each subject. By the end of the program, they will be ready to join regular schools and succeed in the mainstream education system. Academic development is closely linked to cognitive abilities like memory and reasoning. Learning academic skills helps improve thinking skills, and strong thinking skills help students do better in school. Lastly, the socio-cultural development. So since the um, mother tongue or the native language of the students were given importance, the students will feel proud of their own language and culture. They will also learn to respect other people's language and culture. This prepares them to contribute positively to their community and to society as a whole. Schools are not just places for academic learning. They also help students learn social values, build relationships, and understand different cultures. This helps students feel included and valued. So, good education helps students succeed in school, feel proud of who they are, respect others, and become flexible lifelong learners. So, for the next reporter, we have Miss Aladad.
Mother tongue instruction does not come without opposition. A study titled Mother Tongue Based Education in a Diverse Society and the Acquisition of Foundational Skills Evidence from the Philippines shows that mother tongue instruction does not lead to improved learning outcomes, nor does it facilitate additional language acquisition. So, what is the purpose or rationale of the research? The study aims to assess the impact of 2012 nationwide implementation of MTB-MLE in the Philippines on students' foundational skills in reading and mathematics. It particularly investigates whether instruction in the mother tongue improves learning outcomes and how linguistic match between the mother tongue used in instruction and the child's actual home language affects these outcomes. So now the purpose of this study is to evaluate how the nationwide implementation of the mother tongue based multilingual education or MTBMLE policy in 2012 has influenced students' basic learning skills, specifically in reading and mathematics. The researchers wanted to know if teaching in a student's first language would lead to better academic results. So they also looked into how the match or mismatch between the language used at home and the language used in school instruction affects students' learning. So in other words, gina-question there if ang paggamit ba, if simply using the mother tongue in school is effective ba siya or or dili, or when it's not the exact language the child speaks at home. So what are the research questions? So first, does mother tongue instruction improve foundational reading and mathematics skills? So no, this question seeks to determine whether teaching students in their native language leads to better performance in core subjects like reading and math. So which are fundamental to academic success. Second question, how does linguistic diversity affect the outcomes of MTBMLA implementations? So now in the Philippines, where many languages are spoken, this question explores how the presence of multiple languages influences the success or failure of MTBMLE. So gina-consider pud ani if ang diversity of languages sa classroom kay if naabay positive or negative impact sa students' learning outcomes. So question number 3, does narrowing the gap between home and school language enhance student learning? So this question focuses on the potential benefits of using a language in the classroom that closely matches what students speak at home. So the idea is that aligning the language of instruction with students' home language could make it easier for them to understand lessons, possibly enhancing their overall learning experience. So what the key results of the study? So the study found that MTBMLE policy to negative effects on reading and math outcomes when assessed in Filipino and English students exposed to mother tongue instruction performed worse than those under the old curriculum. So even though the language of instruction was closer students' home language, this did not translate to better academic performance. So the key results of the study show that the nationwide implementation of the MTBMLE policy in the Philippines led to negative outcomes in both in reading and mathematics skills. Specifically, students who were taught using their mother tongue performed worse than those who followed the old curriculum, which is ikatong Filipino and English as the language of instruction or LOI. So even though ang MTBMLE approach is gina-aimed ani to use a language closer to the student's home language, this did not result in improved academic performance. So the expectation was that teaching in a familiar language would help students understand the material better, but the results suggest that the transition to mother tongue instruction was not effective as anticipated. So this finding challenges the idea that ang paggamit sa mother tongue in education is automatically leads to better academic results, highlighting that other factors such as the teacher preparedness and resource availability might be just as important for student success. So, what were the conclusions of the study in relation to the use of mother tongue or majority language in instruction? So, the researchers concluded that in linguistically diverse societies, implementing MTBMLE is extremely challenging and may not yield positive learning outcomes. They found that proper alignment between home language and instructional language, MTBMLE could negatively affect foundational learning, especially if instructional materials and teacher support are insufficient. So the researchers concluded that in societies with a high level of linguistic diversity, implementing MTBMLE is very difficult, Jisha, and may not always lead to positive learning outcomes. So one of the key challenges identified was the need for alignment between the language spoken at home or the child's home language and the language of instruction in the classroom. So, kapag wala siya proper alignment, it can hinder the student's learning, especially in the foundational subjects like reading and mathematics. So, the study also emphasized that the success of MTBMLE depends heavily on factors such as the availability of appropriate instructional materials and adequate teacher support. So without ning mga sufficient resources and well-prepared teachers, ang implementation sa MTBMLE can actually have a negative effect on learning. So despite the good intentions of the policy. So this highlights the importance of careful planning, adequate support, and resources for such educational reforms to be effective. So how do the results of the study contradict the Lubwagan experiment? So what do you think accounts for differences in result? So while the Lubwagan experiment found that using the mother tongue helped students learn better and even made it easier for them to learn other languages like English or Filipino, this newer study found the opposite. So it showed that the nationwide use of mother tongue instruction actually made students do worse in reading and math. So one big reason for this difference is that Lubwagan is a small, mostly single language community. So it was easy to match the language used in school with what children spoke at home. So but in other parts of the Philippines, especially in cities or areas with many different languages, it's hard to teach in everyone's home language. So the national program also had problems like not enough trained teachers or learning materials. So because of these issues, the mother tongue policy didn't work well when used across the whole country. This shows that mother tongue teaching can be helpful, but if it's done the right way and fits the local situation. So the results of this study contradict the findings from the Lubwagan experiment, which demonstrated that using the mother tongue as a medium of instruction led to better learning outcomes for students, including improved understanding of other languages like English or Filipino. In contrast, kanina study, the newer study, found that the nationwide implementation of mother tongue instruction in the Philippines actually had negative effects on students' performance in reading and math. So one key reason for this difference is the context with, in which each study was conducted. So the Libuagan experiment took place in a small, largely homogeneous community where the language spoken at home kay same lang siya sa language nga ginagamit sa school. So this made it easier to implement mother tongue instruction successfully. So on the other hand, the national MTBMLE policy had to accommodate a much more diverse linguistic environment with many different languages spoken in various regions of the country. So in places where people speak multiple languages, it becomes challenging to use a single home language for instruction in every classroom. So the nationwide implementation of MTBMLE faced challenges like insufficiently trained teachers and a lack of appropriate learning materials, which hindered the effectiveness of the policy. So this highlights that while mother tongue instruction has the potential to improve learning outcomes, it requires careful planning, adequate resources, and consideration of local contexts to be successful. So reasons for the difference include scale, Lubuagan was a small, localized program with well-prepared teachers and community involvement, while the national policy was implemented broadly and without sufficient support. So the Lubuagan program was a small-scale, localized initiative. It had a manageable size, which allowed for more focused on and individualized support. Teachers is kanang well prepared sila, and there was this strong community involvement. So this personalized approach contributed to the success of the program. So on the other hand, the national policy was implemented across the entire country, making it much more difficult to ensure consistent quality and support. The larger scale made it a challenging to maintain the same level of preparation and involvement across all regions. So resources, the Lubuagam program had tailored materials and teacher training, whereas national program lacked adequate resources in any regions. So the Lubuagan program benefited from tailored teaching materials and specialized teacher training. So this allowed the program to cater the specific needs of the students in sa kanang ilahang community. So in contrast, the national MTBMLE program is nag-struggle sila with the lack of kanang sufficient resources such as katong mga teaching materials and mga trained teachers in many regions. So this resource gap significantly hindered the effectiveness of the national implementation. Linguistic diversity, Lubuagan had a relatively uniform language setting unlike other regions with many competing languages, making implementation more difficult. So Lubuagan had a relatively uniform linguistic environment, meaning that the language spoken at home is consistent ba with the language nga ginagamit nila sa ilahang school. So this made it easier to implement the mother tongue instruction successfully. Pero in many regions in the Philippines that have a diverse linguistic landscapes with numerous languages spoken in different areas, so this linguistic diversity posed a significant challenge for the nationwide rollout of MTBMLE, as it was difficult to align the language of instruction with the home language of every student. So the presence of many competing languages made implementation rather more complex and less effective. So that's all for my part. Thank you.